different today, but I just finished a workout and I have the energy now. So here we go. If you have not already watched chapter one, there is a live, I believe from last week, on majority of chapter one, but I did not finish those last couple of pages. So I did put up a short a little bit earlier today that just goes over the end of chapter one to get everybody caught up on chapter one so that we can now look forward to chapter two. Let me put this big old water down because, yeah, she's heavy. I've got notes up here like on my window. So if you see me looking to the side, I'm just looking at some notes. So, attached chapter two is talking about dependency not being a bad word. That's just what we do. All humans are wired to be somewhat dependent and need a partner's reassurance. It's normal to need reassurance. When I'm talking about the anxiously attached being a little more dependent, really, it isn't that abnormal that they are needing that. It's normal for them to want to continue trying to get that feeling until the closeness returns. So, for someone who's anxiously attached, if the partner is away from them and they feel the awayness, they feel not close, it is absolutely normal for them to have the feeling of dependence. And it's also absolutely normal for them to have that feeling of need until the closeness is resumed in some way, whether that's like a text back, a call back, they see them, whatever it is they're worried about until they stop being worried. It's normal to have that anxiousness. And I think with adults, it still hasn't really calibrated in my mind that that makes sense. But with kids, it does. Because if you have an upset baby or kid, hi there, if you have an upset baby or kid and mom is away, they don't just forget in 30 seconds, like, oh, mommy left me. They did talk about a study in this where they would intentionally leave kids in a new environment. The kids would crawl in, be like, oh, new toys, new books, be living their best life with the toys. Then they'd have mom leave the room and the kids would just go berserk. Like, where's mommy? Where's mommy? Frantically looking for mommy, freaking out. And they didn't just stop freaking out like 30 seconds later, right? They freaked out until mommy returned, which was the security returned, essentially. 12 a.m. there. Where are you at? It is 12:17 p.m. here. I'm on Central Time. So pretty much polar opposite, I guess. We are talking about the book Attached. Let me grab the book real quickly. Hopefully my stuff does not fall while I do. The book Attached. Oh, this is gonna be like mirrored. I don't know how to mirror it the other direction, but we're talking about the book Attached. Hi, Maggie. The book Attached, chapter two, which goes a little bit deeper into attachment theory. You can definitely get this at a bunch of different retailers, but it's really fast to come in on Amazon, just a couple days. It's under $10, so super easy book. I don't know if they're doing a movie or anything like that, but it is a New York Times bestseller, big time book. And the first chapter didn't really like draw me in or get me super interested, but interested just enough to keep reading. So, working on chapter two right now. Definitely not pregnant. I have a big workout, comfy, like thin thing on. So, yes. Okay. So, it says dependency is not a bad word. It's normal to need the dependence from a safe partner, whether that's parent or if you're in a romantic relationship, your partner that you're with and love. So, one of the quotes that I did actually like in chapter two was most people are only as needy as their unmet needs. I've heard that before. I cannot pin down where I've heard it before, but it does make sense. When you think about on movies and things like that, there'll often be like I don't want to say older, but more mature couples where the guys will be out with their bros, like at a bar or something, talking about, like, my wife and I never have sex, and they're whining and just having a whole fit. Well, they're really only as needy in that space as their unmet needs. So if they were having sex at home, they probably wouldn't be at the bar talking about it or whining about it. So it makes sense to me in that way. Or, someone who is on a liquid diet for a while and they're like, oh my gosh, I would do all the bad things for chocolate. Well, if they were having chocolate or whatever their food of choice was, they wouldn't be doing the whining. So the protest behaviors kind of made sense in that way. Amelia, Yes, of course, shout out. Okay, so most people are only as needy as their unmet needs. When their emotional needs are met, and the sooner in the process, the better, then they turn their attention outward. So just like the babies, if they're needing a bottle or needing their diaper changed, whatever it is, if they have a need, they're gonna cry and protest until their need gets met. And this theory says that it's the same with adults with attachment theory, that once your need is met, you just go back into normal mode. Until your need is met, you stay in protest mode and your system is activated and you're in like straight survival mode, almost like a panic attack, something like that. So I did definitely agree with that portion. I think it made sense. That quote made a lot of it make sense that you're only as needy as the unmet need. So if you're showing signs of neediness, especially for those anxiously attached, it's probably because you're not getting certain emotional needs met, and that would make sense. On page 23, it goes through attachment needs are not just for children, it's an integral part of human behavior throughout the entire lifespan. Studies show that the way in which people recall their early relationships with their caregivers does influence their personal relationship and their parental relationships later. So if they had good relationships as babies, they're likely to mirror that when they are a parent too. It does also say that that same initial caregiver relationship shows up in their romantic relationships later. I was really lucky because my parents were both in the home, both super involved, and I did have a caregiver because my mom worked outside the home for a good portion of the time, but the caregiver lived really near to us, so it wasn't like some foreign area, and she was one of my mom's best friends. So she kind of knew the home rules, so I feel like I had a very good transition from home to caregiver, and a lot of people do not have that experience. Whenever I had kids, I was really nervous. I lived in a bigger city than I was used to, and one of my children in particular was, like, super duper attached, like, doesn't wanna go to dad, doesn't wanna go to grandma, doesn't wanna go to anybody. Like, she was, like, shadow mode for real. So, I think oh, hi. I think she struggled a little bit more than the others, and I was worried after hearing that if you have bad experiences with caregivers as a little child, that it affects your lifetime relationships. So, it was really hard to leave her certain places. I ended up instead of taking her to, like, daycare, I just took her to an in-home, and there was only a few kids there. She definitely got a lot of personalized attention, as many cuddles as she needed, that kind of thing, and I think it helped combat it. But I definitely think it's interesting to see the studies saying that those initial influences children do stay throughout a lifetime. So if there's something that has gone wrong and you know about it or even just sense it from past, that is something to look at and just dive a little bit deeper and see if there is any space where that might be showing up for you now. If you had, weird issues with caregivers or you were in daycare from, 6 weeks on, something like that. It's just something to think about now and process if you are reading the attached book and learning more about attachment overall. Just something to think about is those initial phases and stages that you may have gone through. So, page 25 goes through the codependency myth, which is the belief that your well being is not anyone else's responsibility and theirs isn't yours, that your happiness comes from within and is not at all dependent on your partner. Each person is to look after themselves. Your inner peace should not be disturbed by the person you're closest to. If your partner undermines your sense of security in any way, you should be able to distance yourself from the situation emotionally and keep the focus on yourself. If you can't or don't do those things, then there may be something wrong with you, or you may be coined as codependent. And hey, Chrissy, I do agree with that. It is so big in our society right now to be hyper independent, to stay in your own lane and your own focused energy and not let anybody else trigger you or get an emotional response. That is popular culture right now. It hasn't always been, but it certainly is popular culture right now. And I definitely have heard the term codependent a lot since that became popular culture. If you have any dependence level at all on the people around you, codependent is one of those words like narcissistic that just gets thrown out over and over and very quickly sometimes. So I agreed with that as well. It says if you become dependent, versus self-sufficient, you are deficient in some way, which sounds a little bit harsh, like seeing it on paper, but I do really agree with that, that is what society is saying to us right now. They say that the worst possible scenario is needing your partner, which a lot of times in current culture, they are actually equating with addiction. And of course, we all see addiction as a bad thing. We think about opioid addiction or just different vices people have. So if we're looking at all addiction as bad, and they're saying that if you are needing your partner in some way, that it's equated with addiction. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, sounds a little harsh, but not completely inaccurate. So that was the version that they said where society kind of is right now. And I will say this book is, I think it's about 10 years old at this point, maybe 12 years old actually. So it's not the most up to date, but it does have a ton of different studies within it. And studies are something that I don't really feel like go away. If they're done properly, the results from the studies just compound. They don't go away. They don't tend to change and run the other direction. It's just more of the same. And even within this, there were additional studies that went back and reinforced things from prior studies. So I do think that too. On page 26, it talks about the biological truth of it. When we become attached to someone, then two people form one physiological unit. Our partner does actually help regulate our blood pressure, heart rate, breathing, levels of hormones in our blood. We are no longer completely separate entities. Dependency is a fact, not a choice or a preference. When two people form an intimate relationship, they regulate each other's physiological, psychological, and emotional well being to some degree. Their physical proximity or closeness and availability influence the stress response. There were a couple of examples of this show that used to be on TV, The Amazing Race. And there was a girl that kept asking her spouse, or not spouse, I guess boyfriend at the time, like when they were about to do something scary, to hold her hand. And she would not move forward in the race until he held her hand. And it kept causing them delays. While at the end, they lost by just a little bit. And they didn't have the understanding that if he had, just held her hand more quickly, that she would have got that need met and moved on more quickly. But he had actually caused several other delays in the process too and almost quit at some point. So they did reference that scenario in a few different places in the book too, saying that the dependency is normal and that it does have an effect that is measurable or viewable. And I thought that was good that they could actually see that and quantify that. So, page 28 starts talking about the dependency paradox. Before there was brain imaging technology, John Bowlby understood that our need for someone to share our lives with is part of our genetic makeup. It has nothing to do with how much we love ourselves or how fulfilled we are on our own. It's just genetic makeup to have a natural desire to spend our lives or share our lives with someone. I think we've seen that, or most people could probably agree with that statement that it's a natural, innate need to want to spend your life with someone else. New behavior patterns kick in, and a powerful, often uncontrollable forces kick in, regardless of how independent we are and despite our conscious wills. So once you get attached, those things start kicking in with or without your permission, with or without your will. So the evolutionary patterns made by this, where we are physiologically one and we would do anything essentially to save the other person, to preserve the other person, to preserve the relationship and our offspring. That's what the evolution says. That once we are physiologically tied, that we would do whatever to maintain the relationship, the connection, and the person's safety. And that's true for all three attachment styles, whether it's secure, anxious, or avoidant. Any of those have that innate need that once you are physiologically attached, you do whatever for that person. If you've ever, been really attached to someone, you probably know that feeling. Like if there is an almost accident or if they have a health scare, whatever it is, you feel like a really strong, deep tie that, hey, I'm really attached to this person. I really want them to be okay, to come through this, whatever it is. The dependency paradox does not mean and is not to say be attached at the hip, be right in close proximity all the time, be right up on each other at all times. So that was refreshing too because I'm like, "Okay, well, is it saying that we have to be in close proximity? Because that's not realistic." Like, people have work or other events or, they have kids, they just have lives, so you can't be right on top of someone all the time, so I'm like, "That doesn't sound right." But it's saying that, no, the dependency paradox does not mean attachment at the hip, it's actually the opposite. It's stepping into the world on our own, often, I mean, all the time really if you're, maybe going to work, the gym, wherever you're going, with the knowledge that there is someone beside us with whom we can count on. So that doesn't mean that they are literally beside us, attached to the hip. We do everything together, bestie mode. It just means that having that inner knowing that yes, we are attached and yes, they have our backs. They are here for us, whether we're right next to them or not. We can trust them the same in a room with us as we can, across the state. So I do think that clarification was a needed one, I guess. The simplified version of the dependency paradox is if you want to take the road to independence and happiness, find the right person to depend on it and travel down it with that person. If you want to take the road to independence and happiness, find the right person to depend on and travel down it with that person. So it's less about doing everything together, but the person that you are together with or bonded with needs to be the right person to do it with. And then the trust is there, the feeling of security is there, whether the person is there with you or not. So, with the baby example, if they've got a great parent, eventually, it didn't say like at what age. I think some of the studies were on 9-month olds, some on 18-month olds, 9 to 18-month range. But at some phase, if they had good parents and very engaged parents that were loving and caring and doing all the correct things like physical nourishment, emotional nourishment, all of the things that a parent should ideally do, that instead of staying in that state of, and freaking out, that they would become secure and know that, okay, mommy is not right here in the room, but I know mommy's coming back. Like, she'll be back. It's all good. So they would have that comfort level to know that everything was okay and not be freaking out, not have an activated nervous system. And that's what security shows up as in adulthood too. The secure in real life, secure adults would show up in that way as well. So page 29 goes through the strange situation test, which I kind of already went over, but that's about putting the baby in the room with toys. And if they had that strong attachment, even if they're in this strange environment, they can still explore with confidence because they know, mommy's coming back. It's a safe space. And they coined this term of the secure base. So the mom that's doing the right things, the mom that has set the child up to be secure is coined as a secure base. So they know they have a safe place to go home to, which is mom. A secure base for grown-ups is the next topic in the book. It starts on page 31 in chapter 2. It says, if adults feel secure, the world is at our feet. We take risks, are creative, and pursue our dreams. If we lack that sense of security, however, we find it much harder to maintain focus and enjoy life. If we feel secure with our partner, we can turn our attention on to the other aspects of life. So people who feel insecure with their partner are constantly grabbing for partner, thinking of partner, preoccupied with partner. People who are secure with partner, they don't have to do that. They're like, oh, they're fine. Like, it's good. It's good. And they securely walk through life and focus on work and kids and sports and whatever else in the world there is to focus on. The anxiously attached folks are very commonly judged and coined as being very dependent and very preoccupied, meaning all they think about is the relationship. They often struggle at work and things like that because they're thinking about the relationship. They can't focus on all the other parts of life because their only focus is the relationship. If our partner supports and believes in our goals, our self esteem rises, as does our mood, and the goals are more likely to be achieved. This was another study. So they took couples in rooms essentially, and the ones who had supportive partners were more likely to reach their goals, be confident about it, and kind of light up like, yeah, I can do that. They gained even more confidence about the goals they already had. Those who had partners who were not supportive, instead of gaining confidence and having that feeling of, yes, I've got this, I can do this, we're like, oh, yeah, well, maybe not that big of a deal. Maybe I'll small it. And they shrunk down their goals instead. And the studies show they were actually less likely to achieve their goals. So having a supportive partner is a big deal. Like we know that emotionally, obviously, but it matters for your goals and your dreams and your money too. That I thought was very interesting and eye-opening. I think for me personally, I thought about it a lot as like who will be a good dad? Who's gonna be a good provider? Who's going to be here for kids? Things like that. But I didn't think about their support of my career being a huge factor. Now, men will say it all the time. They'll be highly successful and say, "Oh, I couldn't have done this without my wife. She was so supportive. She had my back." You'll hear men talk about that. But I can't really think of many women that I've heard say the same thing. I haven't heard women saying that it's important to have a supportive partner. But according to this study, it's definitely a really big deal. And it is one of the highest likelihood predictory factors of how the relationship will go, but also how your goals will or will not be obtained in life, in career, overall. So choosing a partner is very important stuff. One more little page of notes, and that will be the wrap for chapter 2. So, starting on page 32, they were just discussing how important it really is to find the right person to depend on. That's been touched on a couple of spots throughout the book so far, but it says really the biggest factor of you showing up well, enjoying life, and being happy and fulfilled is picking the right person to be attached to. We're all going to be attached at some point. It's not a choice, it's not a decision, it just happens. We as humans attach. But attaching to the right people is the factor on whether we're going to be happy, sad, indifferent, whatever. So, what happens if the person we rely on most doesn't fulfill their attachment role? Studies show that when our partner is unable to meet our basic attachment needs, we experience a chronic sense of disquiet and tension that leads us more exposed to various physical ailments. So, in addition to not having the needs met, which is probably going to cause emotional discomforts or dysregulation at least, it's also shown in studies to make a big difference on the physical. They gave some examples of people undergoing different procedures and like holding their partner's hand. The ones who were holding their hands who were in a happy, good marital relationship, their stress went down, their blood pressure went down. They felt so much better holding that person's hand. The ones not in a good supportive relationship, their blood pressure actually went up. That's a little scary to think about, that I'm about to undergo, some scary procedure or surgery, something like that. The thought that my partner's hand or my partner's presence holding my hand might make my blood pressure go up and might make me more stressed instead of less stressed. Like, that does not sound like a relationship that I want to be in. But if it was a good relationship, that their presence would calm me, give me that energy, the confidence, like, okay, got this. But I love that that natural thought aligns with the science. So if it's good, it's going to help you out. It's going to reduce stress. If it's bad, it's actually exposing you to more physical ailments, less good recovery times, just worse results overall in life. So a little scary, but definitely important to have the right partner, not just a partner, the right partner. So, our emotional well being and physical health are both sacrificed when we are in a romantic partnership where we do not have that secure base. Having a partner who fulfills our intrinsic attachment needs and feels comfortable acting as a secure base can help us remain emotionally and physically healthier and live longer. I know there are lots of studies about that, that divorced or single people, especially males, tend to not live as long as the ones who are happily married. Not just married, but happily married. So I've seen some other studies on that, but of course, so far, all the studies I've read so far in this book have aligned to other studies or other works that I've already read while getting my psychology degree or just nerding out on relationship type articles and studies. So I did think that was interesting that it helps you emotionally, physically, and your lifespan to be with a good, secure partner. A partner who is inconsistently available or supportive can be demoralizing and stunt our growth and our health. The rest of the book is about finding a partner who can become your secure base and being that kind of partner yourself by being a helpful, secure person, or to go through the book and work on helping an existing partner be able to take that life altering role to become secure, to be a secure base for you. So, just a quick summary of chapter 2. Hope that was helpful. If you're reading along, awesome. Definitely put your comments in. If you're not yet, order the book so that the next round you can get in on the action. It is going to start with some testing to see what attachment style you most resonate with, as well as some clues, cues, and tendencies or patterns of the other styles so that if you are in a relationship with someone, you can help determine what they may be because you probably don't want to just hand them a test. Hey, what attachment style are you? But there's a questionnaire that could go along with it to help you be able to tell from their patterns what attachment style they are so that you can work with them accordingly. Or if you're not in a relationship and you're starting to date or looking to date, that you can look at these certain signs and patterns and determine early on if that person is a certain attachment style so that you know right away, not 5 years in, if that's someone that you would be compatible with and be able to be happy with. The examples mostly would start with the insecure by way of either anxious or avoidant attachment. If you are one of those tend to get drawn together. So it shows you how to look for secure, how to note if someone might be anxious, or how to note if someone might be avoidant so that you can avoid those situations and wait for a good fit who is secure or who is a good match versus going through all the trials and tribulations and years and possible, all these bad health effects and things that we just talked through. There are definitely a lot of studies out there saying that attachment style is huge on your overall happiness. So the more we know, the better we can show up. If you guys want more information like this or have any topic selections also for other creators, if you love doing book reviews or just want to jump on and talk about any certain stuff, hit me with email, something like that, so that we can talk about a collab. I know there's a couple in the works right now, but podcast collaborations, whatever it is, like I totally nerd out on all this psychology stuff. So if you guys have questions or just want to rack my brain on certain things, or if you need any book recommendations, if the book is there, I probably read it. So I am happy to give honest reviews on things. There are so many books out there that are worth every read cent and will really up level you in a certain space. And there are a lot of other books out there, even some that come with a hefty price tag or maybe a good rating, that do zero, in my opinion, to help up level you. I forgot to have my lovely little tournament stamp so I can go back to the basketball games later if I want. It's supposed to be snowing here, so that's probably gonna be a big no, but, uh, it's on there, so I'm gonna have to get that guy off. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. It's Sammi J, back with all kinds of craziness. So, I hope you are enjoying the attached book review. We were trying to do it as, like, a call book club, but the times didn't work out, so we are doing it as a book review on either live shorts, videos, something of some nature. So, if you are interested, check it out. Definitely love to partner with you if there's something that we align on. Thank you guys and have an awesome weekend.